Get comfortable.
I look like this.
You look like you trying to set up for some modeling something or another. All right, everybody, welcome back to Eyes to See Yah. My name is Justin. This is my wife.
Tarsha.
Yeah, she go with them peace signs and all of it. You like an anime character. Anyway, hey Tarsha.
Hey.
So we are doing part 2 of Truth Unedited series, History of Religion. He says this one is going to be about the Israelites, so this ought to be super interesting. I actually think I've seen this one. Oh, I've actually seen all of these before, so this is really more for you, and really it's like a refresher for me because it's been years since I saw this stuff. But yeah, this is part 2, Truth Unedited, History of Religion. You ready?
Yo, let's go.
If you watch part 1 of my History of Religion series, you learned what paganism was. It's the polytheistic belief of Father God, Mother God, and Son of God. You learned where it started and where it spread. You may have understood more why people believe Christianity was stolen from Egyptian beliefs, or you may still even believe that lie because you still haven't been exposed enough to the truth about it at all. We can't get too deep into the truth about Christianity without getting to know and understand the children of Israel. This nation of people is extremely important in every sense, and they must be understood completely. You know, it's funny that so many people deny that Jesus existed, but they can never deny his bloodline of people existed before him. They can deny the Bible, but can't deny the children of Israel existed. It's because there's too much evidence. So because they want to continue being a naysayer, they disregard this nation of people as irrelevant. That couldn't be anything further from the truth. Now please note, I'll be condensing a great deal of history into this video series, so please forgive me if I left something out you might have considered important. I'm covering what I think everyone needs to know in order to understand religion and the true world we live in. So let's begin. In part 1, I started post-flood, but I focused more on the line of Ham. Again, if you have not watched this video, please click the link. That information is crucial and foundational. In this part, we will focus on the line of Shem, Noah's other son. Shem had many sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, etc., until there was Abram. Genesis chapter 11 gives a more complete list. God changed his name to Abraham and said he'll make Abraham a great nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, an obvious reference about Jesus, and that kings will come from his line. The Lord established an everlasting covenant between him and Abraham's descendants. He also promised him and his descendants the land of Canaan, which today is known as the land of Israel, which includes Palestine. Abraham had 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Yahweh passed Abraham's covenant to Isaac. Isaac later had 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau sold his birthright to Jacob. So Jacob received the covenant of his father Isaac and grandfather Abraham. Jacob was blessed. God appeared to Jacob and changed his name to Israel and told him to be fruitful and multiply, and the nation shall come from him, and the king shall come from his loins. And the land of Canaan that they were in should be given to his descendants. So be fruitful and multiply he did. Israel had 12 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin. And these sons are what we know to be the children.
So I just realized that, okay, Israel had all these children here. So when I was over there reading Numbers, it was talking about all the nations whenever they were going to war about this amount of people from the I guess like from the father's house or whatnot.
From the tribes.
So yeah, I noticed it showed Gad on here because I remember Gad, the Levi, which is the Levites. I forgot the rest of the names or whatever, but yeah, so they all came from the children of Israel. So yeah.
Yeah, every time they went to war, even sometimes against each other, they would be called up to provide a number of military-aged men or fighting-aged men from each tribe. Like in Judges 19, I think, whenever the tribe of Benjamin almost got wiped out because of they committed they committed basically the same atrocities that Sodom and Gomorrah was committing upon people who came into one of the Benjamite towns.
Okay.
Yeah, check out Judges 19. It's kind of hard to read because it's a tragic story. It's a heart-wrenching story because it's like, why are people so wicked? But yeah, they the rest of the tribes gathered up and went to war against that town of Benjamites, and the tribe of Benjamin almost got wiped out because of that whole scenario. But yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point that out because I was just reading this. That's why it stood out.
Yeah, but that's a common thing. Whenever Israel was going to war, they would pull fighting age men from every tribe.
Yeah.
And they would send them into battle. And typically they always sent in Judah first because Judah is the tribe of the kings.
Of Israel. Now, one of those sons, Joseph, was betrayed by his brothers, and they tried to kill him. He didn't die and wound up being a prisoner in Egypt. He was blessed by God and was able to interpret crucial dreams for Pharaoh of Egypt. Because of this skill, Pharaoh gave him a high command in Egypt, and he moved himself and his other 11 brothers, along with his father Jacob, to Egypt. It was while living in Egypt that the children of Israel multiplied greatly, and as time passed, Joseph died, and his influence was no longer there. The Pharaoh of Egypt at the time said, "These Israelites are growing in size and number, and they soon will overtake us if we do not deal harshly with them and overtake them." And it was at this point the tribes of Israel became slaves of Egypt for over 400 years. Now,
that's not true. They sojourned in Egypt for 400 years. They were not slaves in Egypt for 400 years. And that's an important distinction because to say that they were in slavery for 400 years in Egypt is just categorically false. Like, you can literally follow that in the Bible, going through Genesis and Exodus. You can literally follow that in the Bible. They were not enslaved in Egypt for 400 years. They were in Egypt for 400 years, but you got to remember a good portion of that time, Joseph was still alive. And it wasn't until after Joseph had died, and not immediately after Joseph died, but after a while, because Joseph died, Israelites kept multiplying. Then Pharaoh saw that they kept multiplying, became concerned, and then started doing what he was doing. So it wasn't even 400 years. It was actually more like 200 some years that they was actually enslaved. So really, like, closer to half of the time they were there was the time that they lived enslaved.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and actually Truth Unedited talks about that in one of his much later videos. Remember, all this is like 6-7 years old. So, some of the stuff.
So he just corrected himself moving forward?
I think so. I don't even think he corrected himself with this in mind. I think he was just talking about it based on, because, the man was studying here, but, as his studies continue, he learned and discovered things and can understand more, as we all do, as we grow and study and learn.
Moses was born of the tribe of Levi, but in order to save him, his mother sent him down the river where the Pharaoh's daughter was compassionate and raised him. When he got older, he killed an Egyptian and he fled Egypt. It was at this time God spoke with him and told him to go back to Egypt and set his people free from captivity. Moses went back to Egypt, and with the help...
I don't know why he's skipping some things that happen. He doesn't say why he killed
the Egyptian.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the goal of the video, because why he killed the Egyptian is
irrelevant.
I'm not calling it irrelevant. I'm saying it's irrelevant to the story that he's telling. Whether he killed the Egyptian for a justified reason or not, he still did kill the Egyptian. That's caused him to get into the wilderness and to meet the Midianites, and then from there to end up talking to the Most High in a burning bush. So he kind of breezing through it because, history of religion. He's talking about how the religion, I guess, of Judaism or the religion of the Israelites or Christianity and all those things like that, where it comes from, and this is pivotal to that. But that particular detail, I wouldn't say it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Right?
Yeah.
From God, he freed the children of Israel. He brought 9 plagues, but Pharaoh's heart was hardened until the last plague. He got Egypt to give up Israel as slaves by the 10th plague, passed over all of Egypt, and killed all the firstborn. The Lord passed over Israel, who were all commanded to put the blood of a lamb on their doorpost. He showed great power this day and showed himself to Israel for the first time. This is where Passover started from. During this time, Israel grew up amongst Egypt's gods and influence, and though they knew of the covenant established with their forefathers, it was hard for them to believe when all they knew was slavery and captivity. But the Lord sent Moses and freed them. They fled Egypt and were en route to the land that God had promised them. So I would just pause here in the story briefly, because most of this you have probably heard before. The most important detail to know out of all this is that from the line of Shem came Abraham, who God established an everlasting covenant with that would bless the world. From Abraham came Isaac, then Jacob, renamed Israel, and then his 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes of Israel. They were in slavery in Egypt for about 400 years, growing around Egypt's pagan gods, which we learned about in part 1 of this series, until the one true God, through Moses, freed them and displayed his power for the first time. The world would never be the same. The main points of religion begin in this next point of the story, so please take note. Okay, so back to the story. After Israel was freed and on their way to the promised land, the Most High, Yahuah, reaffirmed their covenant. So on their way to the promised land, Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get complete instruction from the Lord, and the Lord established his covenant with the children of Israel. The Lord gave them commands which we know as the 10 Commandments. The Lord said, I am your Lord God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord God has given you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor anything that is your neighbor's. He told them,
I have stuff to say, but I don't know if I should say it right now.
I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
If people actually live by the 10 Commandments,
bro, I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say the same thing.
We would, a whole lot of issues that we have and challenges that we have as communities just wouldn't even be a thing, because, like, if we just live by the 10 Commandments,
exactly.
We even got a did a kickback in there. You know what I'm saying? So,
and then the thing that I was going to say, what I was thinking, like, they tell people to not keep the Sabbath or whatever. They try to switch the Sabbath for a Sunday and stuff like that. But it's like, how can you sit there and say that you're not supposed to keep the Sabbath, but then all these other commandments that he listed with that falls in line underneath it?
Yeah, I've always thought something was odd about that. The 10 Commandments still matter, but the Sabbath, we don't have to keep that anymore because, it was fulfilled through the Messiah. And it's like...
No. Because that still falls underneath the commandment of thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not murder.
It's like saying all that was fulfilled in the Messiah, and that doesn't make any sense to me. But what's also interesting too, what you said about them, and to specify who them is, by the way, because again, a friend of mine said that we should specify when we say them and they, who we talking about. When Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, and the Council of Nicaea came together, they did a few things, none of which most people try to tell you they did. Like, they didn't invent Jesus at the Council of Nicaea like some people think. But what they did do is they did create some of the dictates of what it means to be Christian, or at least Catholic. If you go and read the Constantine Creed, and you can literally just Google it, the reason why now today everybody goes to church on Sunday and use Sunday as kind of like a rest day and everything like that, where they don't really do too much. You don't work on Sundays. The reason why you do that is because Emperor Constantine decreed that they were doing away with everything Hebrew. They wanted to completely separate themselves in the Christian religion away from anything related to Hebrew in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So they got rid of all the feast days. They substituted Passover with Easter. They substituted all these different things, or they completely removed all these different things that were Hebrew in nature. They substituted with either pagan things or they just got rid of it altogether. So that's why today you don't celebrate or observe Shabbat on Saturday, but quiet as it's kept, the Christian church observes Shabbat on Sunday. They don't believe that they're observing Sabbath, but that's actually what they are doing when they go to church on Sunday and they choose not to work and they choose to have family time and all those things like that. That's them actually celebrating Shabbat on Sunday. They're just not aware of it because they don't know their own history and where things come from. But if you go look up the Constantine Creed, you'll see and you'll read that, and you'll see how that creed has influenced all Christendom from that pretty much point on.
He was sending an angel that would bring them to the place he prepared for them. The angel will go before them in the midst of the other groups of people, and he will cut them off, all of them. But he also told them something very specific, which was different than any other nation or group have ever heard. He told them that they should not bow down to any of those nations or groups' gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their ways and works, but they shall overtake these groups and tear down their images. In Egypt, he separated himself through the show of his power, and now he commanded them not to commune or even recognize those gods that all those other groups of pagans worshipped. Israel agreed. So it is at this time there is a clear, specific break between the gods of the pagans and the God of Israel. Monotheism versus polytheism. Just take note that being that the nations or groups of this world were significantly stronger in size and influence than Israel, their God must have been very powerful to make such an impact that we have in the world today. Just to add a little common sense thinking in. After this, the Lord called Moses up the mountain, and he gave him tablets of stone and the law and the commandments which he gave. And Moses was to teach. He instructed them to make an ark of wood to carry it in. This will be what we know today as the Ark of the Covenant. He also made Aaron and the sons of the tribe of Levi his priests. So while Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights with the Lord, Israel grew impatient and thought Moses wasn't coming back, and they decided they were going to honor the Lord in their own way. They took off their golden earrings and molded it into a golden calf and said, "This is the God of Israel, which brought us out of the land of Egypt." They built an altar for it and did burnt offerings and peace offerings. They literally did everything the Lord just commanded them not to do. Yahweh was extremely upset. He told Moses to go down there quickly and stop them. He said they were corrupting themselves, and the Lord severely punished them. 3,000.
Moses was so mad when he saw that he actually broke the tablets.
Yeah, he broke it. He threw it down and broke it. And then he had to go right back up there for another 40 days and 40 nights.
I ain't gonna lie, I would have been hitting people. I would have broke the tablets on somebody. Like somebody getting hit with these 10 commandments.
They sat there and they built a thing.
And said that this is the God that brought us out of Egypt. Wait, so let me get this straight. You literally just made something and gave it credit for the supernatural events that you just experienced over the last however many days it took for the 10 plagues to go through. Man, when I say stupidity got to be supernatural in some kind of way.
And then it was like
it's gotta be
animal.
supernatural.
I would at least build like a something
Don't
that looks
build,
like
don't build nothing. They don't know what he look like. Don't build nothing. Wait for Moses. Moses said he's going up there to get a word from the Most High that just says out of Egypt. Okay, I'm going to sit here and wait for him to come back with the word from the one who just says out of Egypt. I'm not going to build something and say, it must have been this. Like I said, stupidity has to be supernatural.
1,000 men fell that day. The Lord told them, do not worship him as the pagans do. He was very clear that the ways of the pagans provoked him to anger, and Israel was not to do any of their practices. Again, these were practices that they learned from Egypt, as this is how pagans worship their gods. But the God of Israel did not want this at all. And this is very important for you to know in your worship of God today. This is extremely important, again, to understand, because this was a clear separation from the gods of Egypt and Babylon.
By the way, this is why we don't create no depictions of the Messiah. Because the Messiah and the Most High God don't want to be worshipped in the same way that pagans worship their gods. What pagans do is they create depictions of their gods and they bow down and worship them. So that's why we don't or shouldn't create depictions of the Messiah. Now, people have, and I don't know if they, well, we know the Pope worship him because he on camera in 4K, worshiping Mary and the Messiah, and that black portrait of Mary and the Messiah. But yeah, we're not supposed to be doing that because that's the way of the pagan. That's the way of the heathen. We're not supposed to do anything as far as worshiping the Most High in the same way that the pagan does.
This was unheard of because the other nations were all pagan. They had no problem with their gods. Israel was and is the different one. And the one true God did not want them to defile themselves worshiping those pagan gods. A lot went on in these chapters. Israel was very proud, stubborn, and ungrateful people. So, reestablishing the covenant the Lord gave Israel, he gave Israel his law for them to abide and follow. The law was very strict and to be abided by to the letter. All of these rules, instructions, and statutes are known as the law of Moses. These laws were only given to the children of Israel, no other nation. You can read these laws in the end of the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy as well. The Lord told the children of Israel specifically what would happen with them if they follow his laws and statutes, and what would happen if they did not. You can find this specifically in Deuteronomy chapter 28. This is very important to understand, especially when trying to understand the truth of who the children of Israel are today in modern times. It's such an important subject and needs a video dedicated to it alone.
I didn't know he was
So
going
back to the story. The children of Israel continue traveling to the promised land. It's important to understand that Israel traveled a long way in the desert, not really sure where they were going. When they got hungry, the Lord sent manna, sweet bread down for them to eat. When they were thirsty, the Lord quenched their thirst. But it wasn't a completely comfortable trip, obviously, because they were in the desert. And though the Lord freed them out of Egypt and did the remarkable things while they were following him to the promised land, they were aggressively complaining and unthankful. Like I said, they were very proud, stubborn, ungrateful people.
This might be stupid on my part, but I can't imagine having so much complaint if I'm being fed for free and getting water for free.
Just like you told me before, like, it be those people that literally find any and every little thing to make a problem about and to complain about.
Yeah, that's for sure. I see that. It's just, I think in terms of the situation, like I'm thinking about it in context, right? You just came out of slavery. You was just getting beat. You was just getting in prison for no reason. You was getting worked to the bone. You was just getting all these different things happening to you. You got up out of that place. You're left with so much wealth you could barely carry it all. And then you end up in the wilderness and, you don't have food or water. You're worried about dying. Next thing you know, food start falling from the sky. Water start exploding out of rocks. You know what I'm saying? Like you're being provided everything that you need exactly when you need it.
In the desert.
All the time. In the desert, where that's not supposed to happen. So I don't know. I just have a hard time picturing me being one of the complaining people then. And what they say, hindsight is always 20/20, right? Like you always have perfect vision when you in the future looking back. So, I guess I can also see the fact that it was hot, and whatever else going on. But man, I'm free. I'm not enslaved no more, and I'm getting free food and water. And I got a tent to sleep in, at night, and I got, family and friends around me, and I don't know. It seems so weird to me that they would find a way to complain while they're experiencing miracles. If I'm experiencing miracles on a daily basis, bro, like I'm too busy being in awe to complain. Food don't fall from the sky. It just doesn't. So I don't know.
And I know it had been very savory. So good.
It had to be good.
Come
it had
from
to be
the
good.
heavens?
It came from the heavens. It had to be good. Had to be.
Like, come on.
They even said they wish they never left slavery in Egypt if they were going to have to deal with the kind of conditions they were dealing with at that point.
Ain't no way.
The Lord was so over them. He was so angry with them that besides a few like Joshua and a couple others, he declared no one over the age of 20 would see the land promised to them. The Lord told Israel he chose them to be a people for himself. He did not set his love for them because they were more in number, because the truth was they were the least, but because he loved them and kept the oath made with their fathers. Israel was his chosen people. It took 40 years but they finally made it to Israel, and at this time, they became their own nation. We can stop here in the introduction of the Israelites, because there's a lot of information needed to understand Israel. From this introduction, the takeaways you should have are: 1. God made an everlasting covenant with Abraham and his descendants. 2. Jacob, later named Israel, son of Isaac, grandson of Abraham, had 12 sons, which came to be the 12 tribes of Israel. 3. Israel was enslaved in Egypt for over 400 years before they came to know their God. 4. Through Moses, God freed Israel from captivity and led them to the land he promised Abraham and Isaac. He instituted the Passover. 5. En route, the Lord gave Israel the 10 Commandments. 6. He also gave them the law, which is known as the Law of Moses, only given to Israel. 7. The Lord was only one God and told them to have nothing to do with the other pagan gods. And 8. We now have the only nation that has set themselves apart from the pagan gods worshipped by the other empires, tribes, and nations. This introduction should show that there was always a difference in religions, but it came from one small nation of Israel, and if their God was not as great as he was, and is, nobody would know about them today. This one nation had instructions and statutes that no other nation had, and they were powerful enough to escape Egypt and take over the land of Canaan, with all of its inhabitants. This God of Israel should be praised and worshipped. Once you understand the history, you cannot deny the other events surrounding the faith. Please stay tuned for the next video, because the story of Israel really gets hot.
Oh, man.
So, that was the second part 2 of History of Religion. Learn something new, or is it kind of like a refresher on some stuff that you already knew?
I learned a tiny bit of something new.
Okay.
But the rest is just a refresher based upon reading the Bible for myself, studying,
Yeah, I mean, we just read Exodus not that long ago, so I mean, you actually literally just read that story.
Yeah, but the part up in Numbers, though, because I'm slowly, but I'm getting there. I'm reading it, so that kind of part was kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
That's why I pointed it out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the part about the 12 tribes, or
Yeah.
the 12 sons of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But History of Religion, this series is it gets so much better and more in depth. I think it's one of the best series he's ever done. I would like to see him do commentary on his own video, though, to see what he said then that he would change now if he was to redo the video or whatever. Just like a truth unedited self-reflection, I guess. I don't know. But that was History of Religion Part 2. We're gonna go and do Part 3. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, that will be Truth Unedited, the conclusion of Truth Unedited's History of Religion Part 2. Next time y'all see me and Tasha together, we'll be doing Part 3.
Yeah.
And we'll get to talk about History of Religion Part 3, Israel Goes to War. But yeah, man, shout out to Truth Unedited for this series. He recorded it several years ago. I believe like 6 or 7 years old when he recorded it. But yeah, shout out to Truth Unedited, because his channel, it created a lot of questions for me, which kind of finding out the answers to those questions kind of pushed me in the direction I'm in with my walk of salvation, and even down to how I lead my family and things like that. So we are a questioning household, and we like to ask questions and find the answers if they have answers available. But yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Just making sure I look good. Now I gotta check myself.
You gotta check yourself.
Yeah, I need to check myself. Yeah, that side profile with a little dimple. I gotta get the good side.
I just want you to know you're being recorded.
Whatever.
Yeah.